I tied the last pink balloon to the fence post and stepped back to look at what I'd created. The backyard looked like something out of a fairy tale. 9 pink place settings dotted the picnic table, each one with a matching napkin I'd folded into little crowns. It took me 3 YouTube tutorials to get them right, but they were perfect. The bounce house stood there, waiting. That thing cost me $275. My credit card literally flinched when I swiped it, but I didn't care. This was my baby's 9th birthday, and she deserved magic. The Pixel Princess cake sat on the dessert table, 9 candles standing tall. It was from Sophie's favorite video game, the one she'd been obsessed with all year. I'd ordered it from that fancy bakery downtown, the one I'd walked past 100 times but never thought I could afford. But this was different. This was Sophie's day. Perfect, I whispered to myself, even though nobody was around to hear it. I checked my watch. Again. For probably the 5th time in 10 minutes, 11:42, Mom and my sisters should have been here by now. They'd promised to come early, help me set up, be there for Sophie before the other kids arrived. But that promise had evaporated like morning dew, just like it always did with them. The sliding glass door squeaked open behind me, and Sophie burst into the yard. She was twirling in her new birthday dress, the purple fabric sparkling in the October sunshine. Purple was her royal color, she'd told me when we picked it out together. She spun around, and for a moment, everything felt right. "Mom! Is it time? Is it time?" She was bouncing on her toes, practically vibrating with excitement. Then she froze. Her eyes darted around the empty backyard, scanning for faces that weren't there. "Where's Grandma? And Aunt Rebecca? And Aunt Lindsay? Are they bringing Marcus with them? Did they see the bounce house yet?" My chest tightened. I forced brightness into my voice, the kind of fake cheerfulness that mothers learn to perfect. "They're on their way, sweetie. Probably just running a little late." Sophie's face fell for just a second. Just one heartbreaking second before she rebuilt her smile. Kids are resilient like that. They have to be. "Okay, I'm going to watch for them from the front window." And she was gone, dashing back inside like a purple comet. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted copper. I should have known better than to believe they'd show up on time. Or at all. The doorbell chimed, and I heard Sophie's excited shriek from inside the house. My heart lifted for a moment. Maybe they'd actually come. Maybe I was wrong to doubt them. I hurried around the house just in time to see my daughter's face collapse. She'd opened the door to find only Aunt Carol standing there, a wrapped present tucked under her arm. Not Grandma, not my sisters, just Carol. "Happy birthday, sweet pea," Carol said, stooping down to hug Sophie. My daughter hugged her back, but I could see her peering around Carol's shoulder, searching the empty driveway behind her. "Is Grandma coming with you?" Sophie's voice was so small, so hopeful. Carol straightened up, and her eyes met mine over Sophie's head. Something like anger flashed across her face before she smiled down at my daughter. "I came on my own today, honey." "But look what I brought you." She handed Sophie the gift. It was beautifully wrapped with a bow that must have taken 20 minutes to perfect. "That was Aunt Carol for you. Always thinking about the details. Always showing up." "Thank you," Sophie said, her voice even smaller now. She clutched the package to her chest and looked back at me with those big eyes. "Mom, can I put this with the other presents?" "Of course, baby. Everything's already out back." As Sophie disappeared into the kitchen, Carol stepped inside and closed the door. "Eleanor and the girls aren't coming, are they?" She didn't even bother to whisper. My phone buzzed in my pocket before I could answer. I pulled it out already, knowing what I'd find. I was right. "Don't be dramatic. It's just a kid's party. We'll make it up to her at Christmas." My mother's words burned on the screen. Just a kid's party, just my kid's party, like it was nothing, like Sophie was nothing. "I'm guessing that's your answer," Carol said, watching my face harden. She squeezed my arm, and I felt the sympathy radiating from her touch. "I'm sorry, Maya." I really am. The doorbell rang again, saving me from having to respond, and then the flood began. Parents dropping off classmates, 8 little girls in party dresses, bearing gift bags and birthday cards. My neighbor from across the street, Mr. Henderson, arrived with folding chairs and a cooler of juice boxes. 2 doors down, Mrs. Chen brought an extra tray of finger sandwiches and a sympathetic smile that told me she understood more than she was saying. For the next hour, I moved through the party like I was underwater. Everything felt muted, distant. I took pictures, served cake, supervised the bounce house. Through it all, Sophie kept looking toward the gate. Every time it opened, her eyes would light up. And every time another classmate arrived instead of her grandmother, they would dim just a little more. When are Grandma and Aunt Rebecca and Aunt Lindsay and Marcus coming? She tugged at my shirt as I refilled the snack bowl. It might have been the 10th time she'd asked. I'm not sure, sweetie. I smoothed her hair, trying to transfer some kind of comfort through my touch. But look at all your friends who came to celebrate with you. She nodded and ran back to the bounce house, but the slump in her shoulders told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't the first time my family had let her down. And something in her 9-year-old heart already knew it wouldn't be the last. My mind drifted while I watched the girls play. Last Christmas, I'd maxed out my credit card buying gifts for everyone. $840 worth of presents I couldn't afford because family matters, right? That's what Mom always said. 3 months before that, I'd covered Rebecca's salon rent when she came up short. $1,650 that vanished into thin air. I'd never seen it again, probably never would. Maya can handle it, they always said. She's good with numbers. Good with numbers. Like that somehow translated to having extra money. Like being an accountant meant I had a magic money tree growing in my backyard. My phone pinged with a notification. I glanced down, and my stomach turned to ice. Rebecca had posted on Instagram. A photo of her, Mom, Lindsay, and little Marcus, all raising mimosa glasses at some fancy brunch spot downtown. They were laughing, having the time of their lives. The caption read, "Family first. Family first, right. Mom? Mom." Sophie's voice broke through the storm in my head. She was standing by the present table, surrounded by her friends, ready to open gifts. All those little girls with their excited faces, waiting to see her reaction to what they'd brought. I tucked my phone away and plastered on a smile. Coming. "Birthday girl!" The girls clustered around as Sophie tore into her presents. She thanked each friend with genuine delight. A craft kit from Emma, a book series from Aisha, a stuffed unicorn from Bethany. Simple gifts from kids who'd actually shown up, who'd actually cared enough to be there. When all the gifts were opened, Sophie looked up at me. Her voice trembled slightly when she asked, "Did Grandma forget my birthday?" The question stabbed straight through my chest. I opened my mouth, searching for words that wouldn't come. What could I possibly say that wouldn't be either a lie or a truth too painful for a 9-year-old to hear? Aunt Carol stepped in. Bless her heart. "Your grandma has a terrible memory sometimes," she said, winking at Sophie. "But that just means you might get a surprise another day." Sophie brightened a little at this possibility. Kids are so quick to hope, aren't they? So ready to believe. The best in people. Even when those people have proven time and again that they don't deserve it. The moment passed as the girls rushed back to the bounce house for one last jump before their parents arrived. Carol squeezed my hand. "This isn't right, honey." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. If I opened my mouth, I might scream, or cry, or both. When the last classmate had gone home, their parents offering me those knowing looks that said they understood something was wrong, I retreated to the kitchen with a stack of plates. I let the tears fall silently as I washed each one, the hot water mixing with the salt on my cheeks. Through the window, I could see Aunt Carol helping Sophie test out her new sidewalk chalk. Their heads were bent together over a rainbow taking shape on the driveway. At least someone was there for her. At least someone cared. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom. Need $350 for a family emergency. Can you transfer it today? The plate in my hands cracked, just snapped right in half as I gripped it too tightly. I stared at the message, at the timestamp. 3:48 p.m. Right. In the middle of the party, she couldn't be bothered to attend. A family emergency. The only emergency was that she'd probably overspent at brunch. I set down the broken pieces of the plate and dried my hands, stared at that message a moment longer. Something inside me was breaking too, a dam I'd been patching for years with duct tape and denial. The time for tears was over. A week passed. 7 days of relative silence from my family, which should have been a relief but somehow felt more ominous. Like the quiet before a storm. I was making Sophie's lunch when my phone started buzzing. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. The family group chat. Of course. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and picked it up, my stomach already tightening with that familiar dread. 1 week since Sophie's birthday disaster, and I'd barely heard a word from any of them. No apology, no explanation, just radio silence, until now. The screen lit up with my mother's message, and I felt the blood drain from my face. Exciting news! Rebecca's Sweet 16 venue is confirmed. $1,850 per guest, with Maya covering Grandma's share since she's on fixed income. Details attached! I nearly dropped the phone. Sweet 16? Rebecca was 26 years old. 26. Lindsay clarified in the next message. Theme is second chance at Sweet 16, since her real one was at the VFW hall. It's going to be amazing! My fingers trembled as I opened the attached PDF. There, printed in glossy color, was a sponsorship page. And there, prominently displayed under Platinum Sponsor, was my LinkedIn profile picture. My name. Maya Allen. They'd used my professional credentials without even asking. Another text arrived from Lindsay. Maya, you're the accountant. Just handle the deposit. Deadline is this weekend, not a request. A command. As if I was their personal ATM machine, existing solely to fund their fantasies. Mom? Sophie appeared in the doorway, a Lego piece in her hand. Can you help me with the spaceship? In a minute, sweetheart. My voice sounded strange, distant even to my own ears. I watched her shuffle back to her room, shoulders slumped in that way that was becoming too familiar. Just like at her birthday party. Just like every time my family made promises they never kept, or worse, didn't even bother to make. After Sophie's door clicked shut, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my banking app. The balance stared back at me like an accusation. $4,213.47 every single penny, earmarked for Sophie's braces next month. The orthodontist appointment was already scheduled. We'd waited 2 years for this, saving bit by bit. On the counter sat the stack of medical bills from when Sophie broke her arm 2 years ago. Insurance had covered most of it, but that $1,200 deductible had cleaned out my emergency fund completely. I'd sold Grandma Rose's silver ring, the only heirloom I owned, just to cover the emergency room visit. Grandma Rose, who'd taught me to balance a checkbook when I was 10 years old. Who'd be horrified to see how her own daughter was treating her granddaughter. My budget spreadsheet was open on my laptop, color-coded, precise to the penny. Every dollar allocated, every expense accounted for. Rent, $1,025. Utilities, $187.32. Groceries, $420. Car payment, $315.76. After-school care, $240. The margins were thin, but we made it work. Our small 2-bedroom apartment wasn't much, but I'd made it a home. Clean, cared for, safe. I scrolled through old Venmo requests from my family. A sickening parade of demands stretching back years. Last month, $650 for Rebecca's salon. Emergency. Month before, $420 for Mom's new patio furniture. Christmas, $840 for family gifts, none repaid. None even acknowledged beyond a quick "thanks, sis" text that felt more like dismissal than gratitude. My mother, Eleanor, had perfected the art of financial manipulation over the years. She wielded guilt like a credit card with no limit. After all I sacrificed raising you girls alone, she'd say, conveniently forgetting that it was her constant spending that drove Dad away in the first place. Rebecca, my youngest sister at 26, ran a salon that hemorrhaged money faster than she could highlight hair. Every crisis was an emergency requiring immediate funds. Every loan was just until next month, but somehow next month never came. Then there was Lindsay, 24 and drowning in credit card debt from online shopping sprees she couldn't afford. Somehow her financial problems always became my financial solutions. The doorbell rang, startling me out of my dark thoughts. I've got it. Sophie called, running to answer before I could stop her. I heard Aunt Carol's warm voice in the entryway. Hello, sunshine. Is your mom home? Carol stepped into the kitchen, arms loaded with a casserole dish. Her eyes narrowed immediately at my expression. She'd always been able to read me like that. What happened? She asked, setting down the food. I wordlessly turned my phone toward her. Watched her face as she read the messages. Her mouth tightened into a thin line. They've got some nerve, she muttered, sinking into a chair beside me, after missing her birthday entirely. Oh, they didn't miss it, I said flatly. They had brunch instead. I saw the Instagram post. Family first, apparently. Carol reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Your mother has always been like this. Even when we were kids, she was the same way. But Maya, you don't have to keep playing along. A knock at the back door interrupted us. Mrs. Chen, my 71-year-old neighbor, waved through the window. I gestured her in. Brought you some banana bread, she said, then stopped, reading the tension in the room. Bad time? Family drama, Carol explained simply. Mrs. Chen nodded knowingly. She'd been bringing us casseroles since Sophie was born, offering wisdom without judgment. She'd seen how often I had to take time off work when family emergencies struck, witnessed the parade of relatives asking for favors but never returning them. Your coworker James called, Mrs. Chen said. Something about covering your shift tomorrow if you need it. Said to tell you he's returning the favor. James. Always willing to swap shifts when Mom demanded my presence for some manufactured crisis. One of the few people in my life who actually reciprocated kindness? Mommy? Sophie stood in the doorway again, clutching a piece of paper. Can I hang this on the fridge? It's for art class. It was a school drawing labeled My Family. Just 2 stick figures holding hands. Me and her. Nobody else. My throat tightened as I took the picture. Of course, baby. While I was finding a magnet, I noticed the stack of thank you cards on the counter. Handwritten by Sophie herself for each friend who'd come to her birthday. Each one decorated with careful crayon stars. She'd thank strangers who showed up, while her own blood relatives couldn't be bothered. That night, after tucking Sophie in, I was walking past her room when I heard her small voice through the door. God, please make Grandma like me more. I promise I'll be really good. I'll clean my room every day, and I won't complain about vegetables, and I'll do all my homework without being asked. Just please make her want to come to my parties. Amen. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand pressed against the wall to keep myself upright. Something inside me shattered into 1,000 pieces. She thought it was her fault. My baby thought she wasn't. Good enough for them to show up. Waited until I heard her breathing even out. Into sleep before I went back to my laptop. My hands were shaking as I opened my email. There, forwarded to me inadvertently by the hotel, was something I wasn't meant to see. The contract for Rebecca's Sweet 16 party. The signature date made my blood run cold. 3 weeks ago, they'd signed this contract 3 weeks before Sophie's birthday. They'd known all along they wouldn't be coming. They'd already committed to spending thousands on Rebecca's ridiculous party, while my daughter waited by the window for them to show up. I opened a new folder on my desktop and created a spreadsheet. Every Venmo request for the past 3 years. Every emergency loan. Every just this once transfer. The total made me dizzy. $23,470. $23,470. Gone. Vanished into the black hole of my family's selfishness. My calendar showed 14 vacation days taken for family events in the past year alone. Hospital visits when Rebecca had minor surgery that turned out to be nothing. Helping Mom redecorate her living room. Driving Lindsay to job interviews she never bothered to show up for. 0 days when any of them had watched Sophie while I worked overtime. I opened Facebook, something I rarely did anymore. Mom had posted a family photo earlier that evening. The caption read, "So blessed with my girls." The picture had been cropped. I'd been standing at the edge when it was taken last Easter. Now I was simply gone, edited out like I'd never existed. The anger rose in me. Not hot and explosive, but cold and clarifying. Like ice forming over a lake, everything suddenly crystalline and sharp and perfectly clear. For the first time in years, I could see the pattern with absolute clarity. The way they used me, the way they took and never gave back. The way they treated my daughter like she didn't matter. I picked up my phone and opened Venmo, my heart pounding in my ears. The next day, I stared at the Venmo app on my phone, my fingers poised above the screen like I was disarming a bomb. The kitchen chair creaked beneath me as I straightened my shoulders and took a deep breath. My mother's latest demand glared from my email inbox. $1,850 for Rebecca's party, plus covering Grandma's share since she's on a fixed income. As if my income stretched like carnival taffy. As if I was made of money. The audacity of it burned through me like acid. They'd skipped Sophie's birthday to plan this extravaganza. They'd cropped me out of family photos. They'd let my daughter pray herself to sleep, begging God to make her grandmother love her. In the next room, I could hear Sophie humming to herself, arranging her stuffed animals for a tea party. No cousins to play with. No grandmother doting on her. Just fabric friends who never disappointed her, never made her feel small and unwanted. I tapped the screen and created a new payment. The recipient field filled with my mother's name. My thumb hovered over the amount, and I entered $1. In the memo line, I typed a single word, "Congrats." My thumb hovered over the blue send payment button. One press and everything would change. The old Maya, the one who always said yes, who always covered the emergencies, who always put family first even when family put her dead last. She would die with this single tap. I thought of Sophie's face at her party, watching the gate, waiting for family who never arrived. I pressed send. The confirmation appeared instantly on my screen. Payment sent, $1 to Eleanor Allen. I took a screenshot and saved it to a new folder on my phone. I labeled it Boundaries. My lungs expanded fully for what felt like the first time in years. The kitchen walls seemed to widen around me. The weight that had been pressing on my chest since I was 20 years old, since Dad left and Mom declared me the new head of the family, suddenly lifted. "Mom, can we have spaghetti tonight?" Sophie called from the living room. "Absolutely," I answered, and my voice was steadier than it had been in months, maybe years. By noon, I'd made 3 phone calls that should have happened years ago. First, I called my landlord and asked about changing the locks. He said he'd send someone over the next day. Second, I called the hotel hosting Rebecca's party. I spoke to the event coordinator and explained, very calmly, that I had not authorized the use of my name or professional credentials as a platinum sponsor. I asked them to remove my information immediately and to send me written confirmation. The coordinator was mortified. "Ms. Allen, I'm so sorry. We were told you'd agreed to this. I'll have your name removed right away." Third, I called my bank and set up fraud alerts on all my accounts. The locksmith arrived at 2:15. A stocky man named Frank, who whistled through his teeth as he replaced both my front and back locks. "All set, ma'am," Frank said, handing me 2 shiny new keys. "No one gets in without these now." The invoice read $175, less than a single small favor my sisters typically requested. While Sophie napped on the couch, exhausted from school, I created a detailed spreadsheet documenting every loan my family hadn't repaid over the past 3 years. Every text message request, every Venmo transaction, every promise to pay me back that had evaporated like smoke, $23,170, enough for a decent used car. Or a year of community college tuition, or Sophie's braces, plus a family vacation with money left over. My phone buzzed incessantly throughout the afternoon. I glanced at it once and saw 23 unread messages in the family group chat. I silenced it without reading any of them. Instead, I drafted an email to the hotel, attaching screenshots of all my correspondence with my family. Proof that I'd never agreed to sponsor anything. Proof that they'd used my name without permission. The hotel manager responded within an hour. Ms. Allen, we've removed your name from all materials and will be in contact with the actual party organizers regarding payment. We apologize for this confusion. By evening, Sophie and I sat at our small kitchen table, twirling spaghetti and watching cartoons on the TV. She laughed at something silly on screen. Tomato sauce dotting her chin. I love spaghetti night, she said, grinning at me with her gap-toothed smile. Me too, baby, I said. And I meant it. This is enough, I thought, watching her giggle at the cartoon. We are enough. The doorbell rang at 8:47 p.m. Through the peephole, I saw my mother flanked by both my sisters. Their faces were contorted with barely contained rage. Behind them, I could see Rebecca's boyfriend hovering by their car, clearly uncomfortable. Maya Allen, open this door right now. My mother's voice carried easily through the wood, loud enough that I was sure the neighbors could hear. I stepped back as the pounding began. The new deadbolt held firm. Is that Grandma? Sophie appeared behind me, her eyes wide with confusion. Yes, but she forgot to call before coming over, I said calmly, surprised by how steady my voice was. It's too late for visitors tonight. More banging. The doorbell chimed repeatedly, an aggressive assault on the peaceful evening we'd been having. You can't hide in there forever, Rebecca shouted. After everything we've done for you. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree with incoming texts. You're betraying this family. How dare you embarrass us with the hotel? What kind of daughter acts like this? Wait until everyone hears what you've done. Through the peephole, I watched Mr. Henderson from across the street step onto his porch, arms crossed, observing the scene. The Rodriguez family peered through their blinds. My family had become a spectacle, but for once, I wasn't scrambling to fix it or smooth it over or apologize for existing. Should we let them in? Sophie whispered, clutching my leg. No, honey, I said firmly. Remember our talk about people respecting our home? This isn't respectful behavior. People who respect us call first and don't bang on doors. The flash of police lights suddenly bathed our living room in blue and red. I closed my eyes briefly, taking a deep breath. Of course they'd called the police. When I opened the door, Officer Thompson stood on my porch. I recognized him immediately. He'd coached Sophie's soccer team last spring, always patient with the kids, always kind. Evening, Ms. Allen, he said, his expression professional, but I could see the kindness in his eyes. We received a call about a family dispute, something about threats and withholding of family property. Behind him, my mother puffed up like a peacock, ready to perform. She's refusing to return property that belongs to our family, she announced dramatically. And she's been sending threatening messages. I felt Sophie's small hands gripping the back of my sweater as she hid behind my legs, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. May I come in for a moment, Miss Allen? Officer Thompson asked quietly. Of course. At my kitchen table, I showed him everything. The texts, the emails demanding money, the receipts for every Venmo transfer, the screenshot of my $1 payment with its simple, congrats message. I've been financially supporting them for years without any repayment, I explained, my voice surprisingly calm. I changed my locks today because I'm establishing boundaries. There are no family heirlooms being withheld. There are no threats, just me saying no for the first time in my adult life. Officer Thompson reviewed everything carefully, his eyebrows rising occasionally as he scrolled through the evidence. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and looked at me with something like respect. They're used to you taking care of everything, he said. Now you're changing the rules. That's always hard for people to accept, especially when they've been benefiting from the old arrangement. He stood up and returned to the porch where my family waited. I watched through the window as he spoke to them, showing them something on his phone. Probably the screenshot of their own messages, the demands, the entitlement dripping from every word, their certainty visibly diminished with each passing moment. My mother's finger jabbed in my direction one last time before they retreated to their cars. Rebecca slammed her door so hard the whole vehicle shook. After checking both locks twice, I found Sophie sitting on her bed, her small legs dangling over the edge. She looked so tiny, so vulnerable. Mom, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Am I not important enough? Is that why Grandma and my aunts didn't come to my birthday? The question knocked the wind right out of me. I knelt down to meet her eyes, taking her small hands in mine. No, sweetheart. You are the most important thing in the entire world. That's exactly why I have to protect you from people who don't value us the way we deserve to be valued. But they're family, she said. And hearing my own old excuses coming from her mouth broke something inside me. Family should make you feel loved and safe, I told her. Family should show up when they promise to. Family shouldn't make you pray at night asking God to make them like you more. Her eyes widened. You heard that? I did, baby. And it broke my heart, because you are perfect exactly as you are. You don't need to change. They need to change. But that's not your job to fix, and it's not mine either anymore. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Another text from my mother. You'll regret this. Family is everything. I deleted it without responding and tucked Sophie into bed, pulling her comforter up to her chin. It's just us two, I told her, smiling genuinely for the first time in days. And that's plenty. That's more than plenty. After she fell asleep, I checked my phone one last time before bed. Mixed in with the angry messages from my mother and sisters were other texts that made my throat tight with emotion. Aunt Carol, you did the right thing. They're furious, but the truth is on your side. I'm proud of you, Mrs. Chen. Those brownies cooling on my counter aren't going to eat themselves. You fought the right fight today. James from work. Need extra shifts to rebuild your savings? I can swap Tuesday for your Saturday. An email from Sophie's teacher. Sophie seems happier this week. Everything okay at home? Whatever you're doing, keep it up. I set my phone aside and breathed deeply. The house felt different tonight. Lighter somehow, like the walls had stopped pressing inward. Like I could finally breathe without the weight of impossible expectations crushing my chest. I'd been so focused on trying to build a family, on trying to force my mother and sisters to care about us, that I'd never noticed the community forming around us. Brick by brick, person by person. People who actually showed up. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. I knew that, but tonight, for once, I could sleep without the weight of their demands suffocating me. My phone buzzed at 6:30 in the morning, jolting me awake before my alarm even went off. I squinted at the screen, my stomach dropping when I saw Rebecca's name, not a text. A Facebook notification. Rebecca Allen mentioned you in a post. I tapped the notification with my thumb, already knowing what I'd find. Her profile loaded, revealing a paragraph-long status update that made my blood run cold. When toxic people show their true colors. Some folks pretend to care about family until they're asked to contribute. Then suddenly they're too good for the rest of us. Guess money means more than memories to certain people. Family first, toxic people done. 17 comments already. Most from extended family and high school friends I hadn't spoken to in years. So sorry you're going through this. Sweetie. Blood isn't always thicker than water. You're better off without that negative energy in your life. I scrolled through the comments, each one a tiny needle pricking my skin. Nobody asking for my side of the story. Nobody questioning why I might have sent that $1 payment. Just automatic assumption that I was the villain. The bedroom door creaked open, and Sophie peeked in, her hair tousled from sleep. Mom? Are you okay? I locked my phone quickly and forced a smile. Fine, sweetie. Just checking emails. She believed me, thank goodness, and padded back to her room. I waited until her door clicked shut before opening Facebook again. My finger hovered over the comment box. Paragraphs formed in my head. Explanations, defenses, the receipts, all the evidence stretching back years. The Instagram post of them at brunch during Sophie's party. The $23,000 they'd never repaid. Instead, I typed 5 simple words. I wish you all well. Then I logged off. Shut down the app and slid out of bed. The kitchen felt different that morning. Lighter somehow, despite the social media assault happening in the digital world. I poured cereal for Sophie, made coffee, checked her backpack for homework. Normal routines that suddenly felt revolutionary without the weight of pending family demands hanging over me. My phone rang while I was washing the breakfast dishes. A number I didn't recognize, but the area code was familiar. I almost let it go to voicemail, then answered at the last second. Maya? It's your Uncle Robert, my father's brother. A ghost from another lifetime. I hadn't heard from him since my high school graduation. Uncle Robert? My voice came out higher than I intended. I heard what happened with Eleanor and the girls. His voice sounded older, rougher than I remembered. Your mother called me yesterday trying to recruit allies. My shoulders tensed. She did? Mm-hmm. Thought you might like to know you're not the first person she's done this to. A dry chuckle rumbled through the phone. Not even close. What do you mean? 20 minutes later, I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at a photo Uncle Robert had texted me. My dad at my 5th birthday party. I barely remembered that day. But there he was in the picture, his eyes hollow, his shoulders curled inward, the same expression I'd seen in my own mirror for years. History repeating itself, Uncle Robert had said. She drained him for years, Maya. Financially, emotionally. When he finally left, she just transferred all those expectations to you. You were 20, working your first real job, and suddenly you became the new bank. The doorbell interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find Mrs. Chen standing there, holding a casserole dish that smelled like heaven. Chicken and rice, she said, pushing it into my hands before I could object. And the ladies from St. Mark's Church will be by with more tomorrow. We're setting up a meal train. Mrs. Chen, that's really not necessary. We've all been watching, she cut me off, her voice firm but kind. Some of us have been exactly where you are. Family can be wonderful, or it can be quicksand. You're doing the right thing, pulling yourself out before you drown. Before I could respond, she touched my arm gently. There's a rotation of us keeping an eye out. When certain cars drive by, we'll be watching. Just so you know. She left before I could thank her properly, the warmth of the casserole dish seeping into my palms. I placed it on the counter and noticed an envelope tucked underneath. Inside was a $200 gift card to the grocery store. A simple note in handwriting I didn't recognize, for Sophie's needs. No strings, no repayment expected, no name, just kindness without expectation of return. The contrast knocked the wind out of me. I sank into a kitchen chair, tears blurring my vision. These neighbors owed me nothing. We exchanged waves at mailboxes, occasional small talk about the weather, borrowed cups of sugar. Yet here they were, forming a protective circle around us, while my own blood relatives waged war on social media. That evening, after Sophie was asleep, I pulled out my budget spreadsheet. For the first time in years, I recalculated without factoring in family emergencies. The numbers shifted before my eyes like magic, revealing an extra $732 every month. Money that had been disappearing into the black hole of my family's manufactured crises. $732. Enough for Sophie's braces with money left over. Enough to start the education fund I'd been dreaming about since she started kindergarten. Enough for a modest vacation to the lake this summer, where she could make memories that didn't include waiting for relatives who never showed up. I stared at those numbers, my breathing growing steadier with each inhale. Then I opened a browser and researched savings accounts specifically designed for education. 20 minutes later, I'd opened one in Sophie's name. The initial deposit was small, just $50, but it was a start. A seed planted in fertile soil instead of being thrown into the void of my family's endless needs. The next morning, grocery shopping felt different. I studied prices out of habit, but I wasn't calculating each item with the razor-thin margins I'd lived with for years. At the checkout, I saw a bunch of tulips, bright yellow and cheerful. $24 for flowers felt extravagant, frivolous, but I added them to my cart anyway. This small rebellion against scarcity, this tiny act of choosing beauty over necessity, brought a smile to my face that lasted all the way home. Saturday morning arrived with unexpected sunshine. Sophie wandered into the living room while I was folding laundry, wearing her favorite pajamas with the rainbows that were getting too small, but she refused to give up. "Mom, aren't we going to Aunt Rebecca's party today?" She asked it so casually, like she was asking about the weather. My hands froze mid-fold. "What?" "The Sweet 16 party. I saw it on your calendar before." She shrugged, oblivious to the bomb she'd just dropped. "Taylor from school is going. Her mom is friends with Grandma." The familiar guilt surged through me, bitter as copper on my tongue. Should I reconsider? Was I being too harsh? Maybe this was hurting Sophie more than helping her. The questions cycled through my head like a hamster wheel, old programming trying to reassert control. Then Sophie added, almost as an afterthought, "I don't really want to go anyway. Those parties are boring. You have to wear itchy dresses and sit still forever and smile even when people ignore you." Something in her voice, that matter-of-fact acceptance of being ignored at family events, made my decision crystal clear. "How about we go to the park instead?" I suggested. "The basketball courts should be empty this early. I'll bet I can finally beat you at horse." Her face lit up like sunrise. "Really? Can we get ice cream after?" "Absolutely." Hours later, we were sitting in a booth at Dairy Dream, sharing a $7 sundae that was more chocolate fudge than ice cream. Sophie giggled as she told me about beating me at basketball. Chocolate dripping down her chin. Her happiness was unfettered, genuine in a way I rarely saw at family gatherings, where she walked on eggshells desperate for attention that never came. A woman at the next table smiled at us. "You two look like you're having the best day. Would you like me to take your picture?" I hesitated, then handed her my phone. She captured us mid-laugh, ice cream and all, our faces pressed together, both of us grinning like fools. When she returned the phone, I studied the photo. We were messy, imperfect, radiantly happy, nothing like the posed family portraits my mother insisted on each Christmas, where everyone held strained smiles and calculated positions based on hierarchy. "I like this way better than a fancy party," Sophie declared, diving back into the sundae with the focus of a surgeon. "So do I, baby," I realized aloud. "So do I." My phone stayed silent all afternoon. No text from my family. No angry calls. Just blessed silence that felt like a gift. That night, after Sophie was in bed, my phone finally chimed. A text from Aunt Carol. "You dodged a bullet. Sweet 16 was a complete disaster. Trainwreck doesn't even cover it. Call me when you can." I dried my hands on a dish towel and tapped her number. She answered on the first ring. "Maya! Oh my God, where do I even start? What happened?" I asked, sinking into a kitchen chair. Carol's laugh crackled through the speaker, edged with disbelief. "They seated your mother directly next to the smoke machine. You know how her asthma acts up around anything like that?" Of course they did. She spent half the night coughing dramatically and complaining loud enough for the whole venue to hear. The event coordinator kept trying to move her, but Eleanor refused because apparently that seat had the best view of the cake table. I could picture it perfectly. Mom turning her health issue into a performance, making sure everyone knew she was suffering. "Rebecca fought with the DJ over every single song," Carol continued. "The poor man looked ready to unplug everything and walk out. And the photographer? He left 2 hours early because Lindsay kept demanding he retake shots until they were Instagram perfect." Sounds like a nightmare. "Oh. But here's the best part." Carol lowered her voice conspiratorially. When the bill came, Eleanor's face turned whiter than that fancy tablecloth they'd insisted on. Suddenly, nobody could make eye contact. They'd gone way over budget planning this thing, counting on your platinum sponsorship to cover the difference. I wound the dish towel around my finger, a small smile tugging at my lips despite myself. "How much over?" "Let's just say they're all fighting about who's responsible for the extra charges. They kept glancing at the empty chair where you were supposed to sit, like they'd literally saved a seat for your wallet." Wow. "You did the right thing, Maya," Carol said firmly. "This wasn't about you being petty. This was about them learning they can't budget around someone else's bank account without asking." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet kitchen for a long moment. I probably shouldn't feel satisfaction about their disaster. The old Maya would have felt guilty, would have been tempted to swoop in and save them even now. But that Maya was gone. In her place was someone who understood that protecting herself and Sophie wasn't cruelty. It was survival. Monday morning, I was organizing files at my desk when a shadow fell across my workspace. I looked up to find my mother standing there, wearing her Sunday dress and that expression I knew too well. The one that said she was about to make a scene. "We need to talk," she announced, loud enough that my co-workers' heads turned in unison. My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice level and professional. "This isn't appropriate, Mom. I'm working." She set her purse down on my desk, covering the spreadsheet I'd spent the past hour updating. The gesture was deliberate, invasive. Family comes first, Maya, or have you forgotten that? I stood up, gently but firmly guiding her toward the break room, with a light touch on her elbow. 10 minutes, I whispered. That's all I can give you. Inside the break room, she launched into a speech that sounded rehearsed. Words about forgiveness and family duty, peppered with phrases I recognized from Pastor Wallace's sermons at the church she dragged us to as kids. Speaking of Pastor Wallace, she said, adjusting her pearl earrings with that affected gesture she used when trying to appear refined. He called me after service yesterday. He's very concerned about our family division. He said reconciliation is God's way. I stared into my lukewarm coffee, watching the surface ripple as my hand trembled slightly. Did you tell him why we're divided? She waved dismissively, her rings catching the fluorescent light. Details don't matter when family is involved. What matters is that you're tearing this family apart over money. Over money? My voice came out sharper than I intended. Mom, you missed Sophie's 9th birthday to go to brunch. Then demanded I pay for Rebecca's party. This isn't about money. It's about respect. Respect? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you girls. And this is how you repay me? You raised me to be responsible, I said quietly. To budget and save and plan ahead. I'm doing exactly what you taught me, just not for your benefit anymore. Her face flushed red. Your father would be ashamed of you. The words hung in the air between us like poison gas. For years, that statement would have devastated me. Now it just made me sad. Dad left because of the constant financial pressure, I said, finally speaking the truth we'd all danced around for a decade. Uncle Robert told me everything. You did to him exactly what you've been doing to me. Robert has no right. I'm done with this conversation, Mom. I have work to do. I stood up and walked to the door. If you want to have a relationship with me and Sophie, it starts with respecting boundaries. That means calling before visiting. That means not demanding money. And that means showing up when you promise to. I left her sitting there and returned to my desk, my hands shaking but my resolve steady. That evening, an envelope was waiting in my mailbox when I got home. No return address. Inside, a handwritten note in script I didn't recognize. Children need their grandmother. Think about what you're doing to Sophie by keeping her from family. The next day, Rebecca's husband Marcus called while I was making dinner. Look, Maya, he said, his voice tired. Just give them what they want. Peace is worth the money, isn't it? Marcus, with all due respect, you don't know what you're talking about. I know Rebecca's been crying every night. I know your mom's health is suffering from the stress. I know this is all over what, a couple $1,000s? It's not about... I stopped myself. I'd explained this enough times. Marcus, I hope you and Rebecca are happy. But this isn't your business. I hung up before he could respond. Then came the Thanksgiving invitation. Cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing, delivered by my sister Lindsay herself. She left it in my mailbox without knocking, like a coward delivering ransom demands. I opened it that night after Sophie was asleep. Beautiful calligraphy spelled out the details of a family Thanksgiving at some fancy venue downtown. At the bottom, a handwritten note in my mother's script, water under the bridge if you contribute $750 for the venue. Family forgives. I placed the invitation on the counter beside Sophie's school photo. Her smile had returned these past weeks, growing brighter each day. She wasn't asking about Grandma anymore, wasn't praying to be liked more. The choice was clear. After tucking Sophie into bed that night, I sat at the kitchen table with an old family photo in my hands. Christmas 7 years ago. Dad was still with us then before he left, before Mom assigned me all his financial responsibilities. We were all smiling in the picture, though I remembered the argument that erupted 10 minutes after it was taken. Dad questioning the credit card bill, Mom crying about sacrifices. The usual cycle. My phone sat beside me, Mom's number highlighted on the screen. One tap would reconnect us. One call could smooth everything over, make it all go back to normal. Just another check. Another withdrawal from my savings. Another promise to Sophie that I'd have to break when their next emergency arose. Another birthday party where she'd wait by the window for family who never showed. Sophie's voice echoed in my memory. Am I not important enough? I placed the old photo in a drawer and replaced it on my refrigerator with her school picture. That girl with the confident smile deserved better than what I'd had growing up. The next morning, I drafted a letter. Not an emotional plea, but a documented history. Every loan with dates and amounts. Every missed event with context. Every broken promise laid out in clinical precision. I made it clear, specific, unemotional. Dear Mom, Rebecca and Lindsay, I began. Over the past 3 years, I have provided $23,470 in financial support that has never been repaid. I have taken 14 vacation days to help with your emergencies while receiving zero help with Sophie's care. I have attended every family event while you missed my daughter's 9th birthday for brunch. This isn't about the money, though the money matters. This is about respect, about showing up, about treating Sophie like she matters. Moving forward, these are my boundaries. No unannounced visits. Call first or you will not be let inside. No financial requests. I will not be lending or giving money anymore. If you commit to attending Sophie's events, you must follow through. One more broken promise, and you will not be invited to future events. No using my name, credentials, or photographs for your events or social media without explicit written permission. No showing up at my workplace. Family discussions happen outside of work hours. These boundaries are non-negotiable. Break them, and I will reduce contact further. If you want a relationship with me and Sophie, it must be built on mutual respect, not financial dependency. Maya. I made 4 copies. One for Mom, one for Rebecca, one for Lindsay, and one for Pastor Wallace with a cover letter explaining the financial manipulation he'd been unknowingly supporting through his sermons about family obligation. I signed each copy, slid them into envelopes, and sent them all certified mail, requiring signatures. 2 days later, a small envelope arrived addressed to Sophie. The return address belonged to Bethany Thompson, the classmate who'd sent her the $3 bill for ice cream weeks ago. Sophie tore it open at the kitchen table, her eyes widening. Dear Sophie, she read aloud, I know your birthday was a while ago, but I've been saving up. Here's $10 for something special. You're really nice, and I'm glad we're friends. Love, Bethany. A $10 bill was tucked inside the card. Sophie handled it like it was made of glass. Mom, Bethany's saving for new art supplies. She showed me the catalog. This is a lot of money for her. That's what makes it so special, baby. She chose to share with you anyway. She carefully placed the card on our refrigerator, straightening it 3 times until it was perfectly aligned. This is the best card ever, she declared. I watched her skip off to her room, the $10 clutched carefully in her hand. $10 from a child saving for art supplies meant more than all the hollow promises and cropped photos my family had ever offered. The phone rang that evening. My mother's number. I almost sent it to voicemail but answered on the final ring. Maya, you need to fix this, she said without greeting. No hello, no pleasantries. Your sisters are fighting constantly since those letters arrived. About what? I asked, though I could guess. About money. What else? Her voice dripped with frustration. Rebecca says Lindsay pushed too hard with that Sweet 16 business. Lindsay says Rebecca promised you'd cover more than your share. Eleanor says, well, everyone's blaming everyone else for driving you away. Mom, I said quietly, I'm not responsible for fixing adult relationships between you and them. But you've always been the sensible one. The responsible one? Yes, I said, watching Sophie through her bedroom doorway as she arranged her stuffed animals for their nightly tea party. That's exactly why I'm making a different choice now. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. So that's it? Mom finally said. You're just done with us? I'm done being taken advantage of. If you want a relationship with me and Sophie, the terms are in that letter. The ball is entirely in your court now. I hung up before she could respond and felt something shift inside me. Not guilt, not anger, just peace. 2 months slid by like water, smooth and unremarkable in the best possible way. I stood on a wobbly stepladder, paint roller in hand, as soft yellow paint transformed our living room wall from builder's beige to something that looked like captured sunlight. Mom, you missed a spot. Sophie pointed with her smaller brush toward a patch near the ceiling. Her purple t-shirt was covered in yellow splatter marks like tiny stars. Got it, Eagle Eyes, I said. stretching higher to roll paint over the stubborn white square. Way better than the old color, Sophie declared, attacking the baseboards with the focus of a surgeon. It's like we brought sunshine inside. The front door opened, and James from work poked his head in, carrying a wooden bookshelf under one arm like it weighed nothing. Special delivery, he announced. Where do you ladies want this? By the window, I said, climbing down carefully. James, you really didn't have to build it yourself, he shrugged, setting it down gently. What else was I going to do with my weekend? Watch golf? This is way more satisfying. His laughter filled our small living room, warm and genuine. A few months ago, that sound would have made me tense. Worried about what my mother would say about male visitors, about maintaining appearances, about what the family would think. Now I just smiled and helped him position the oak shelves where afternoon sunlight would hit them perfectly. Later, while Sophie arranged her books by color on her new shelves, I stood back admiring our work. The calendar on the fridge caught my eye. Movie night, written in Sophie's crooked handwriting for Friday. Park day for Sunday. Simple plans. No family obligations. No emergency loans draining my account. No last-minute cancellations breaking my daughter's heart. The tension I'd carried in my shoulders for years, the knots that no amount of stretching could release, had melted away. I could breathe fully now. I could think clearly. I could plan for our future instead of constantly managing their crises. Mrs. Chen called, Sophie said, carefully placing her Harry Potter collection on the middle shelf. She wants to know if I can come over tomorrow for knitting lessons. Do you want to go? Sophie nodded eagerly. She says I have natural talent. She's going to teach me how to make a scarf for you for Christmas. Then absolutely, I said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear and accidentally leaving a smudge of yellow paint on her cheek. Oops, sorry about that. She giggled and deliberately touched my nose with her paintbrush, leaving a matching yellow dot. Now we match. That night, I sat on the edge of Sophie's bed as she showed me the drawing she'd been working on. 2 figures holding hands under a rainbow. She'd written my family at the top in careful letters. Just us two? I asked softly. Well, and Aunt Carol sometimes. And Mrs. Chen and Mr. James and Bethany from school? She looked up at me with those wise eyes. Family doesn't have to mean blood, right, Mom? Mrs. Chen told me that. She said family is whoever shows up and stays. My throat tightened. Mrs. Chen is a very smart lady. The smartest, Sophie agreed, yawning. Well, except for you. You're the smartest. After she fell asleep, I found myself back in the living room, looking at our freshly painted walls in the dim light. My phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Carol. Heard through the grapevine that Eleanor's trying to organize a family intervention. Wanted to give you a heads up. Don't let them bully you back. You're doing amazing. I smiled and typed back a quick thank you. Then I opened my banking app, something I'd been doing with increasing satisfaction over the past 2 months. Checking account. $6th $847.52 Sophie's education fund. 1,200 my emergency fund. $983 hours. Numbers that would have been impossible just months ago. Money that used to disappear into the void of my family's manufactured emergencies was now building our future. Brick by steady brick. 2 weeks later, I received an email from Sophie's teacher, Mrs. Langston. The subject line read, Classroom project, thought you'd want to know. I opened it during my lunch break at work, curious. Dear Miss Allen, it began, each student is presenting their My Hero project this week. Sophie's presentation was particularly moving. I thought you'd like to see the photo I took. She gave me permission to send it to you. Attached was a picture of Sophie standing in front of her 3rd grade class, holding up a poster board. Even through the slightly blurry photo, I could make out 2 stick figures holding hands against a crayon sunset. Above them, in Sophie's careful handwriting, my mom, my hero. Below the drawing, she'd written in bullet points, my hero is my mom because she works hard. Every day, she keeps me safe. She makes the best spaghetti. Taught me that love doesn't hurt. She showed me that saying no can be brave. That last line made my eyes well up. With tears right there at my desk, Mrs. Langston's. Email continued. Maya, I don't know what's been happening in your personal life, but Sophie has transformed this semester. She used to be quiet, anxious, constantly worried. Now she participates in class. She's confident. She smiles all the time. Whatever you're doing, please keep it up. I saved the photo to my phone, then printed it and tucked it into my wallet where I'd see it every day. That evening, Sophie showed me the poster in person. "I got an A+, she said proudly. Mrs. Langston said it was the best presentation in the class. Emma's was about her dad, who's a firefighter, and Tyler's was about his grandma, who fought in a war. But mine was about you. I'm honored." "Baby," I managed to say, past the lump in my throat. "I told everyone about how you changed the locks and set boundaries and how we're happier now. Mrs. Langston said boundaries are important for everyone, even kids. She said I can have boundaries too." "You absolutely can," I said, pulling her into a hug. "Always." We hung the poster on our refrigerator, right in the center. Our collection was growing. Bethany's cards, Sophie's drawings, reminders of the family we were building, chosen family that actually showed up. That weekend, Christmas cards started arriving in the mail. One stood out, arriving in my mother's distinctive handwriting. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Inside was a generic card with a winter scene. No long message, just 4 words in her shaky script. "Families should be together." Below that, almost as an afterthought, "We've all made mistakes. No apology." No acknowledgement of what those mistakes were, just a vague statement that could mean everything or nothing. Rebecca's text arrived next. "I miss my niece. Marcus asks about Sophie all the time." Then Lindsay sent an email about a family healing retreat in Arizona. The price tag was $2,300 per person. I literally snorted coffee through my nose when I saw it. Even in their attempts at reconciliation, they wanted my money. I read each message twice, waiting for that familiar twist of shame and obligation in my gut. Waiting for the guilt to sink its claws in. Nothing came, just calm clarity as I typed a single response to all 3. "We've moved forward. I wish you well. Simple, clean, final." Our Christmas tree stood 4 feet tall in the corner of our living room, adorned with popcorn strings Sophie and I had made together and ornaments she'd crafted at school. The presents beneath it weren't expensive: a new sketchbook, colored pencils, a telescope I'd found at a garage sale. But each one was wrapped with care, each tag written in my best handwriting. Mrs. Chen brought over apple cider and homemade cookies on Christmas Eve. James arrived with a casserole that was more cheese than anything else, but it tasted like comfort. Aunt Carol drove 3 hours to join us, bearing more homemade cookies and genuine hugs that felt like coming home. "I brought something else," Carol said, handing me a leather-bound album. The first page read, "Our family of 2" in her elegant script. "It's beautiful," I whispered, touching the embossed cover with trembling fingers. "There's room to grow," she replied, nodding toward our guests laughing in the kitchen. "Family expands to fit whoever deserves to be there." We spent Christmas Day playing board games, watching movies, and eating until we were stuffed. Sophie fell asleep on the couch that night, surrounded by her new art supplies, a smile on her face even in sleep. "She hasn't asked about your mom once today," Carol observed quietly as we cleaned up wrapping paper. "I know," I said. "She's healing. So are you," Carol said, squeezing my hand. January brought fresh starts and new routines. I joined a support group for single parents at the community center, held every Thursday evening. At first, I felt like an imposter, like my struggles didn't measure up to the real hardships others faced. But sitting in that circle of folding chairs, listening to other parents share their stories of boundary setting and choosing their kids over toxic family, I realized I was exactly where I needed to be. I cut off my mother 2 years ago, a woman named Patricia shared during my 3rd meeting. My daughter used to cry herself to sleep, wondering why Grandma liked her cousins better. Now she's thriving. It was the hardest decision I ever made, but it gave my kid her childhood back. After the meeting, Patricia pulled me aside. "You're doing the right thing. I can see it in your face. You look lighter than when you first walked in here." February had me volunteering at Sophie's school once a month, helping with art class. Uncle Robert, my dad's brother, sent occasional postcards from his travels: Morocco, Portugal, Costa Rica, each one with encouraging notes scrawled on the back. "Your dad would be proud of you," one postcard read. He tried to break free but didn't have your strength. You're giving Sophie what he wished he could have given you, a life without the weight of other people's dysfunction. We were building something new. Brick by careful brick. A life that didn't revolve around crisis management and emotional manipulation. A life where Sophie came first, where her needs and happiness weren't sacrificed on the altar of family obligation. March brought Sophie's school musical. She'd landed a speaking role, 3 whole lines as townsperson number 4 in The Wizard of Oz. She'd been practicing for weeks, her excitement bubbling over every evening at dinner, the night of the performance. I arrived an hour early to get a good seat. Mrs. Chen came with her knitting, still working on that scarf Sophie had started learning. James showed up with flowers for Sophie. Aunt Carol drove in from 2 hours away. As the lights dimmed and the curtain rose, I glanced around the auditorium at other families. Some had grandparents, cousins, whole clans filling multiple rows. For a moment, just a flicker, I felt that old ache of what we didn't have. Then Sophie walked onto the stage in her costume, and her eyes immediately found mine in the audience. Her whole face lit up. She delivered her 3 lines perfectly, her voice clear and confident. And when she took her bow with the rest of the cast, she was looking right at us, her people, the ones who'd actually shown up. After the show, as Sophie clutched her flowers and posed for pictures with her friends, their mothers approached me. "Sophie talks about you all the time," Emma's mom said. "My daughter says Sophie told everyone in class that you're her hero." "She's teaching Emma about boundaries," Bethany's mom added. "Emma came home and told me she doesn't have to hug relatives if she doesn't want to. Thank you for raising such a confident little girl." Raising a confident little girl. That's what I was doing. Not managing family drama. Not funding other people's fantasies. Not teaching my daughter that love means accepting poor treatment. Raising a confident, happy kid who knew her worth. As October approached again, bringing Sophie's 10th birthday with it, I began planning another party. This time with 0 expectations of my blood relatives showing up, and 0 anxiety about it. "Can we do it at Riverside Park?" Sophie asked. "The one with the big playground and the picnic tables by the water?" "Absolutely," I said, making notes. "Same guest list as last year?" "Yeah, and can we invite Mr. James and Mrs. Chen too?" "And Aunt Carol, obviously. They're family. She said it so naturally, so easily. The definition had expanded and shifted to include the people who mattered. Not just the people we shared DNA with. I reserved the picnic pavilion, ordered a cake from the same bakery. Pixels were out this year, she wanted a galaxy theme, and sent out invitations 2 weeks in advance. 3 days before the party, an envelope arrived in the mail. Expensive stationery, my mother's handwriting. Inside was a card with a scenic mountain photograph on the front. For Sophie's 10th birthday, written in gold script. A crisp $50 bill was tucked inside. The note read, "Happy birthday to our granddaughter. We hope you have a wonderful day. Love, Grandma, Aunt Rebecca, and Aunt Lindsay." No guilt trip. No demands. No conditions. Just a straightforward birthday card with money and well wishes. I stared at it for a long moment, searching for the trap, the manipulation, the strings attached. But there was nothing. Just a simple card. "What do you want to do with this?" I asked Sophie, showing her the card and money. She studied it thoughtfully. "Can we put the money in my education fund?" "The one you showed me?" "We can do that," I said slowly. "But Sophie, if you want to write them a thank you note, that's okay. Or if you want to invite them to your party." "I don't want them at my party," she said simply. Not cruelly, but matter-of-factly. "They'll just make me sad when they don't show up. I want my party to be happy the whole time, the wisdom of a 10-year-old, protecting her own peace. Then we'll deposit this in your fund and send a thank you note," I decided. Because being polite costs nothing, but we don't have to let them back in just because they sent money. Sophie nodded, satisfied, and went back to working on her birthday invitations. That evening, after she was asleep, I drafted a short thank you note in Sophie's name. "Dear Grandma, Aunt Rebecca, and Aunt Lindsay, thank you for the birthday card and gift. Sophie is putting the money toward her college fund. We appreciate you thinking of her. Best, Maya and Sophie." Polite, neutral, boundaried. I mailed it the next day without overthinking it. The birthday party was perfect. Sunny October weather, cool but not cold. 10 girls from Sophie's class, plus Emma's little brother who tagged along. Mrs. Chen brought potato salad. James set up a telescope for the kids to learn about planets, tying into Sophie's galaxy theme. Aunt Carol coordinated games. Sophie glowed the entire day. No anxious glances toward the parking lot, no waiting for people who wouldn't come. Just pure, uncomplicated joy. As we sang Happy Birthday and she blew out her candles, I caught James watching me with a soft expression. "You've done good, Maya," he said quietly, while the kids devoured cake. "Really good. We're doing good," I corrected, gesturing to our assembled group. All of us together. That night, after guests had left and Sophie was passed out on the couch from sugar and excitement, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Maya? It's Rebecca." I froze, my whole body tensing. "Rebecca." "I'm not calling to fight or ask for anything," she said quickly. I wanted to say thank you for the note, for acknowledging the card. You didn't have to do that." Silence stretched between us. "Mom made us send it," she continued. "She said if we wanted any chance of a relationship with you and Sophie, we had to start by respecting your boundaries. No strings, no expectations, just showing up in small ways and proving we could be trusted." "Okay," I said carefully. And I'm calling to tell you she was right. We've been horrible to you, Maya, for years. You were always the responsible one, the one who fixed everything, and we took advantage of that. We took advantage of you." I sat down slowly, not trusting this conversation, waiting for the ask, the twist, the manipulation. "I'm not asking you to forgive us," Rebecca continued. "I'm not even asking to be at Sophie's parties or in your life. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What we did, how we treated you. And I'm sorry," my throat tightened. "Why now? What changed?" She laughed, but it sounded sad. "Mom's been going to therapy. Her doctor suggested it after the stress from our situation. Landed her in the ER with chest pains. Turns out they were panic attacks, not a heart attack. But it scared her. The therapist has been working with her on family dynamics and healthy relationships." "Okay," I said again, still cautious. "She made us all go to family therapy together. It's been brutal, Maya, seeing how we treated you laid out like that. Lindsay cried for an hour when the therapist showed us the pattern. How we'd essentially turned you into Dad's replacement, made you responsible for everyone's problems." I closed my eyes, absorbing this. "Rebecca, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know we're working on it, on ourselves. No expectations of you. You've built a good life with Sophie. I can see that from the outside, and you deserve that peace." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet living room for a long time. Sophie's birthday decorations still hung on the walls, her presents stacked neatly by the couch. The galaxy cake had been devoured, just a few crumbs remaining. Part of me wanted to believe Rebecca, wanted to hope they were really changing. But a larger, wiser part of me knew that even if they were working on themselves, it didn't mean I had to let them back in. Their growth was their responsibility. My responsibility was protecting the peace Sophie and I had built. I could wish them well from a distance. I could appreciate the birthday card without reopening the door. Boundaries didn't have to be permanent exile. But they didn't have to be an open invitation either. They could exist in the middle, in that gray space where forgiveness didn't require trust, where kindness didn't require vulnerability. The holidays approached again, but this time I wasn't dreading them. Sophie and I had started our own traditions. Cookie baking on the first Saturday of December, driving around to look at Christmas lights every Wednesday evening, movie marathons on cold Sunday afternoons. 2 weeks before Christmas, another card arrived, this one from my mother, addressed to both Sophie and me. "Dear Maya and Sophie," it read in her careful script, "I would like to invite you both to Christmas dinner at my house. Just dinner, no strings, no expectations. Aunt Carol will be there as a buffer if that makes you more comfortable. I understand if you say no, but I'm hoping you'll consider it. I've been working hard on myself, and I'd like to start making amends. Love, Grandma Eleanor." I showed Sophie the card that evening. "What do you think?" She chewed her lip thoughtfully. "Will Aunt Rebecca and Aunt Lindsay be there?" "I don't know. We can ask. If we go, can we leave if it gets weird?" Smart kid. "Absolutely. We can have a code word. If either of us says it, we leave immediately. No questions asked." "Like, pickle?" Sophie suggested, giggling. Pickle works, I agreed, smiling. So is that a yes? She nodded slowly. I think I want to try, but Mom, if they're mean to you, I'm going to tell them that's not okay. Mrs. Chen says we have to advocate for the people we love. My heart swelled. Deal. I called Aunt Carol that night. Did you know about this dinner invitation? I did, she admitted. Your mother asked me to be there, and I agreed. Maya, I've been seeing her every few weeks since all this happened. She's really trying. The therapy is helping. She's not perfect, but she's working on understanding what she did wrong. And my sisters? They've been going too, family sessions and individual ones. Rebecca finally admitted she's been using her salon as an excuse to avoid real responsibility. Lindsay's in a debt management program. They're growing up, honey, finally. Christmas dinner was strange. Not bad, but surreal. My mother's house looked the same, but the atmosphere felt different, lighter somehow. Mom answered the door herself. No dramatic entrance, no performance. Thank you for coming, she said simply, hugging Sophie gently. I'm so glad you're here. Rebecca and Lindsay were already in the living room. They stood when we entered, uncertain smiles on their faces. Hi, Sophie, Rebecca said. You've gotten so tall. Hi, Aunt Rebecca, Sophie responded politely, staying close to my side. Dinner was quiet at first, everyone careful with their words. But slowly conversation began to flow. Mom asked Sophie about school, actually listening to her answers instead of waiting for her turn to talk. Lindsay complimented the scarf Sophie was wearing, the one she'd knitted with Mrs. Chen. Rebecca showed us photos of her salon's renovation. I'm doing it right this time, she said. Saved the money myself, got a small business loan, hired an accountant to help me budget properly. That's great, I said, and meant it. After dinner, while Sophie was showing Lindsay her latest art project, Mom pulled me aside. Maya, I need to say something. And I need you to just listen, okay? I nodded, bracing myself. I was a terrible mother to you. Not just recently, but for years. After your father left, I was so angry and scared that I turned you into his replacement. I made you responsible for things no child should ever have to handle. And when you became an adult, I kept doing it. I saw you as a resource, not as my daughter. I didn't see you. Her eyes were watery, her voice shaking. I missed Sophie's birthday because I was selfish and petty. I wanted to punish you for being responsible when I couldn't be. I wanted to make you feel guilty for having boundaries. And what I actually did was break my granddaughter's heart. A tear rolled down her cheek. I can't undo that. I can't give you back the years I took from you. But I can promise you that I'm working every day to be better, to be the mother and grandmother you both deserve. I don't expect you to trust me right away. I just want the chance to prove I can change. I took a shaky breath. Mom, I appreciate that. I really do. But you need to understand that Sophie and I are okay now. We built a life without you, and it's a good life. If you want to be part of it, it has to be on our terms. No more financial requests. No more guilt trips. No more putting your needs above Sophie's. I understand, she said immediately. I swear to you, Maya, no more manipulation. And if you break these boundaries, we're done. Not just for a few months, permanently, she nodded, more tears falling. I understand. Thank you for even giving me this chance. When it was time to leave, Sophie surprised me by hugging her grandmother. Not a long hug, and I could see the caution in her eyes, but a hug nonetheless. Thank you for dinner, Grandma, she said. Thank you for coming, sweetheart, Mom replied. And Sophie? I'm sorry I missed your birthday last year. That was wrong of me. I hope I can come to your next one if you'll have me. Maybe, Sophie said honestly. We'll see. In the car on the way home, Sophie was quiet for a long time. Are you okay? I asked. I think so, she said slowly. It was nice, but Mom? I'm glad we didn't need them to be happy. I'm glad we already have our family with Mrs. Chen and Mr. James and Aunt Carol. Me too, baby. Me too. 6 months later, I stood in my kitchen making Sophie's lunch for her last day of 4th grade. The house was the same small 2-bedroom, but it felt different now. The walls we'd painted yellow still glowed with captured sunlight. Photos covered every surface, not stiff, posed portraits, but candid shots of Sophie laughing, of our chosen family gathered around our table, of moments that mattered. My phone rang. Mom's number. I still hesitated before answering, old habits dying hard, but I picked up. Hi, honey, she said. "I'm calling about Sophie's end-of-year recital. She mentioned it last week when I took her for ice cream. I wanted to make sure I had the right date and time. I don't want to miss it." "It's Friday at 7 p.m., I said. "Are you sure you can make it?" "I'll be there," she promised. "I've already marked it in my calendar. And Maya, I'm bringing flowers for Sophie, but I wanted to check with you first. Is that okay? I don't want to overstep." The fact that she was asking, that she was considering my boundaries, meant something. "Flowers are fine, Mom. Thank you for checking." Over the past months, my mother had slowly proven herself. She'd shown up to Sophie's February birthday party, the makeup party we'd thrown at her request, and stayed the whole time, helping with games and cleanup. She'd sent cards on holidays with small amounts of money and no strings. She'd asked before visiting, called before showing up, respected every boundary I'd set. Rebecca had successfully renovated her salon and was actually turning a profit. She'd paid me back $500 of what she owed, with a payment plan for the rest. I'd told her it wasn't necessary, but she insisted. "I need to do this," she'd said. "For me, not just for you." Lindsay had gotten a steady job and moved out of Mom's house into her own apartment. She was still working through her debt, but she was doing it herself, not asking me to bail her out. The changes weren't perfect. There were still moments of tension, times when old patterns tried to reassert themselves. But now, when they slipped, they caught themselves. They apologized. They did better, and most importantly, Sophie was thriving. Her teacher reported that she was one of the most confident kids in class. She had friends, hobbies, dreams for the future. She talked about becoming an artist or maybe a teacher. She was learning violin. She'd joined the swim team. She was happy, genuinely, freely happy. That Friday night, the school auditorium buzzed with excitement. I arrived early and found Carol, Mrs. Chen, and James already saving seats. "Did you save one for Eleanor?" Carol asked quietly. "I did," I admitted, pointing to the empty chair beside mine. At 6:58, 2 minutes before curtain, my mother hurried in, slightly out of breath, clutching a bouquet of purple flowers. "Sophie's royal color. Made it," she said, sitting down with relief. "Traffic was terrible, but I left early just in case." The lights dimmed. The curtain rose, and there was Sophie, standing center stage with her violin, looking more confident than I'd ever seen her. She played beautifully. Not perfectly, there were a few squeaks and missed notes, but with heart, with joy, with the unself-conscious freedom of a child who knew she was loved. When the concert ended and Sophie took her bow, she scanned the audience until she found us. Her face lit up when she saw the full row, me, Mom, Carol, Mrs. Chen, James, and even Rebecca and Lindsay who'd snuck in late. After the show, as Sophie posed for pictures with her flowers, Rebecca pulled me aside. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For teaching us what real family looks like. It took you breaking away for us to see how broken we were. You set the standard, Maya. You showed us that love isn't about what you can take from someone. It's about what you give freely." Lindsay joined us, adding, "We're not trying to get back everything we had before. We know that's not possible. We just want to be part of your life in whatever way you'll allow." I looked at my sisters, really looked at them, and saw something I hadn't seen before. Growth, humility, genuine change. "We're figuring it out," I said. "One day at a time, one boundary at a time. But yeah, you're part of our life now, just a different version than before." That night, after everyone had gone home and Sophie was asleep with her flowers on her nightstand, I sat at my kitchen table with my journal, the one Carol had given me all those months ago. I wrote, "Real family isn't defined by blood or obligation. It's defined by who shows up, who respects you, who celebrates your wins and supports you through losses, who understands that love isn't transactional." I wrote, "Setting boundaries wasn't about punishing anyone. It was about protecting ourselves, about teaching Sophie that she deserves respect, that we both do, about breaking cycles that have repeated for generations." I wrote, "The best revenge isn't elaborate or cruel. It's building a life so full of peace and joy that the people who hurt you become irrelevant. And if they want back in, they have to meet you at your level, not drag you down to theirs." The house was quiet. Sophie slept peacefully in her room, no longer praying to be liked more, no longer wondering why she wasn't good enough. The refrigerator hummed softly, covered in photos and cards and reminders of the life we'd built. My phone sat silent on the counter. No emergency requests, no guilt trips, no demands. Just a few texts from earlier in the evening. Carol saying she was proud of me. Mrs. Chen sending a photo of Sophie on stage. James asking if we wanted to go to the zoo this weekend. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, standing in her backyard at a birthday party, watching her daughter's heart break as family chose brunch over her. That woman was exhausted, depleted, drowning in everyone else's needs. This woman, the one sitting here now, was strong. She'd learned that no is a complete sentence. She'd learned that protecting your peace isn't selfish. She'd learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away, even from family, especially from family, and maybe, just maybe, she'd learned that walking away can sometimes be the catalyst for people to finally grow up, to finally see what they've been taking for granted, to finally become the people they were always capable of being. Sophie appeared in the doorway, her stuffed rabbit clutched under her arm, eyes sleepy. "Can't sleep?" I asked. She shook her head and climbed into my lap, even though she was getting too big for it. "I just wanted to say I had the best day ever." "Me too, baby girl." "Mom?" she said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "I'm glad you sent that $1. I pulled back to look at her. "You knew about that?" "Aunt Carol told me a few months ago. She said you did something really brave, that you stood up for us when nobody else would." "It was the scariest thing I'd ever done," I admitted. "But it worked," Sophie said. "Now Grandma and my aunts actually show up, and we have Mrs. Chen and Mr. James and Aunt Carol. We have everybody." "We do," I agreed. "We really do." She yawned and slid off my lap. "I'm going back to bed." "Love you, Mom." "Love you too, Sophie." I watched her pad back to her room, this confident, happy child who'd somehow survived her family's dysfunction and come out stronger for it. We both had. The next morning, an email arrived in my inbox. The subject line read, "Thank you, from Bethany's mom." I opened it curiously. "Dear Maya, I wanted to reach out and thank you. Bethany came home from school yesterday talking about how Sophie told her class that families get to decide who's in them, that nobody has to accept poor treatment just because of shared blood. My daughter has been struggling with her grandfather, who belittles her constantly. Your Sophie's words gave her permission to set boundaries. She told her grandfather yesterday that she wouldn't visit anymore unless he spoke to her respectfully. I've been trying to teach her this for years. Thank you for raising such a wise, brave girl. She's teaching other children to value themselves. Best, Jennifer Thompson." I read the email twice, then 3 times, tears streaming down my face. This was the real impact. Not just saving ourselves, but showing others it was possible. Sophie hadn't just learned to value herself, she was teaching her peers to do the same, breaking cycles that stretched through generations. I forwarded the email to Carol, to Mrs. Chen, to James, to my mother. Everyone who'd been part of our journey, Mom called within minutes. "Maya, I'm crying reading this," she said. "Do you know what you've done? You've changed the pattern for Sophie's entire generation. You've shown them they don't have to accept what we accepted." "That's all I ever wanted," I said, "for her to know her worth." "You gave her that," Mom said softly. "And in doing so, you gave us the chance to find ours too." As I hung up, I thought about that moment a year ago. Standing in my kitchen, my finger hovering over the send button on that $1 Venmo payment. How terrified I'd been. How certain I was that I'd lose everything. Instead, I'd gained everything that mattered. I'd gained peace, confidence, self-respect. A daughter who knew she was worthy of showing up. A chosen family that actually did show up. And eventually, miraculously, blood relatives who'd finally learned what family really meant. That single dollar had cost me everything. I thought I needed and given me everything I'd always wanted. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is value yourself enough to say no, to walk away, to demand better. And sometimes, in the space created by that boundary, something beautiful grows. Something real. Something worth far more than all the hollow promises and guilt trips and transactional love in the world. Sophie and I had built that something together. A family defined not by obligation, but by choice. Not by demands, but by mutual respect. Not by what we could take from each other, but but by what we freely gave. That night, I added one final entry to my journal. To anyone reading this, anyone struggling with similar situations, your peace matters. Your boundaries matter. Your child's well-being matters more than maintaining toxic relationships. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to demand respect. It's okay to say no, and that $1 I sent, best money I ever spent. It bought me freedom. It bought Sophie her childhood. It bought us both a future. Never underestimate the power of a boundary well set. It might just save your life. I closed the journal and looked around my small, sunlight-filled home. At the photos of genuine smiles. At the calendar full of plans with people who actually showed up. At the budget spreadsheet showing healthy savings accounts growing steadily. This was what winning looked like. Not revenge in the traditional sense. Not destruction or punishment, just peace, just joy. Just a little girl who knew she was loved, and a mother who'd finally learned to love herself enough to demand better. We were enough. We'd always been enough, and $1 had proven that. Real family isn't determined by blood, but by who actually shows up, respects your boundaries, and values you consistently. Setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is value yourself enough to walk away from people who take you for granted, even if they're family. Your peace and your child's well-being are worth more than maintaining toxic relationships. And sometimes, the people who lose you will finally grow enough to deserve a place in your life again. But only on your terms. The greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life so full of genuine love and respect that those who didn't value you become irrelevant. And if they change, they have to earn their way back into the peace you've created.